Good morning and thank you for the opportunity to present our work. The title of this presentation is Teaching Madrid to its Citizens. It presents the result of a learning and service projects developed in the Architectural Analysis course at the School of Architecture of the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. The project connects three main ideas: architectural education, the dissemination of the contemporary Madrid architecture, and the visibility of architectural works designed by the participation of women architects. Our starting point is simple. The city contains many value recent buildings, but citizens do not always have the tools to read them, understand them, or appreciate their architectural value. Through this project, students use architectural analysis not only as an academic exercise, but also as a way of profounding knowledge that could return to society. The start point of the project was the identification of a social and cultural need. Madrid had experienced intensive architectural production in recent decades, including housing, cultural buildings, education facilities, social infrastructure, and public spaces. However, many of these works are not widely known outside professional circles, in particular, works designed by women or with the participation of women architects are often less visible than large or more celebrated production. This don't mean that they are less important. On the contrary, they can offer very valuable lessons about the contemporary city, public life, environment awareness, housing, and social community. The question was how to make the architecture more legible for citizens. We asked whether the analytical work produced in the university could become a bridge between specialized architectural knowledge and the everyday experience on the city. The pedagogical framework of the project is learning and service, also known as service learning. In the methodology, students learn through the development of a service that responds to a real social need. The service is not an addition at the end of the course. It is integrated into the learning process from the beginning. In our case, the service consisted on produce clear, rigorous, and visually attractive material about contemporary Madrid architecture. The students were not only asked to understand a building for themselves, they were asked to analyze it in such a way to other people could also understand it. They changed the meaning of the course exercise. Drawings, diagrams, models, and interpretation becomes tools of public communication. The classroom was therefore connected to the city, and the city became both the subject of analysis or the final recipient of the work. The project was developed within the Architectural Analysis course at EPSAM, the School of Architecture of the Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. It was supported by the Architectural Foundation of the Official Association of Architects of Madrid, known as COAM. The collaboration was essential because it gave the student work a possible public life beyond the university. The material generated during the course was conceived as a resource for citizens interested in Madrid architectural heritage. It can be used on the Architecture of Madrid guide, in the Guia Madrid app, and another format of public dissemination, such as Architecture Week, lectures, wide visit, printed materials, social networks, and exhibition. The first round of public dissemination was an exhibition in the windows of the COAM headquarters on Hortaleza Street in the center of Madrid. In this way, the project literally brought architectural analysis to the street. The case studies were selected from relevant works on contemporary architecture in Madrid, designed with the participation of at least one woman architect. The list included a wide range of architects and buildings, housing projects in Carabanchel and another neighborhoods, cultural institutions such as the Cineteca, the Casa del Lector, the Museo ABC, and the Serrería Belga, social and educational facilities, public spaces, and buildings linked to care, sport, and civic life. The diversity was important because it avoided reducing the project to a single type of architecture or to a single understanding of women's contribution. Instead, the selection created a collective map of recent Madrid architecture. Its group of 3 students was assigned one building. Over the semester, that building became the center of a sequence of analytical exercise, allowing students to approach it from different points of view and with increasing depth. A key decision was to change the organization of the course. In previous years, each exercise usually used a different case study, selected because it was especially appropriate for a specific type of analysis. In the 2024-25 academic year, the course was reorganized so that the students repeatedly analyzed the same building. This had several advantages. First, it reduced the time spent on the redrawing or remodeling basic information for each new exercise. Second, it allowed students to develop a deeper knowledge of their building. Third, it made possible to establish connections between exercises that had previously been more independent. The course combined individual and group work. Some exercises were carried out by each student, while others were developed collectively by groups of 3. The result was a richer and more continuous analytical process. The first exercise was environment and parietal analysis. It was carried out individually over 2 weeks. The objective was to understand the architectural envelope and the urban landscape in which each building is located. Students analyzed the facade not only as a technical boundary, but also as a surface or architectural meaning. They studied the relationship between full and empty spaces, the composition of openings, rhythm, continuity, materiality, color, and texture. At the same time, they evaluate the position of the building with the urban fabric, considering its relation to the surrounding street, volumes, heights, and public spaces. This exercise was especially important for communicating architecture to citizens because the facade is often the first and most direct point of contact between a building and the public realm. The second exercise was massive analysis, developed in groups over 2 weeks. Here, students focused on the formal dimension of architecture, mass, volume, void, and the interaction between different parts of the building. The goal was not to represent the building as it appears in a photograph, but to abstract its volumetric logic. This kind of analysis is very useful because it reveals decisions that may not be immediately visible, not special observed. It shows how a building occupies its size, how this creates hierarchies, how opens or closes itself, and how the different volumes work together. By simplifying the building into diagrams, to students learn to explain complex architectural operation in a clear way. This is one of the strengths of architectural analysis as a public communication tool. The third exercise was spatial analysis. Because of its complexity and become spatial understanding is one of the central competencies of architects, this exercise was carried out individually over 3 weeks. Students investigated the architectural space generated by the building and represented it through abstract three-dimensional models. The intention was to move beyond the conventional plan or elevation and to make visible the special experience of the project. In many buildings, the most important architectural value is not only in the object itself, but in the relationship it creates between interior and exterior, between circulation and stay, between public and private, between open and enclosed areas. By using transparent models, layer diagrams, or color codes, students were able to explain this relationship in a way that could be understood visually and intuitively by a wider audience. The fourth exercise was technical analysis. It was developed in groups over 4 weeks and allowed greater freedom and experimentation in the graphic approach. Students studied the structural, constructive, and environmental dimension of its building. This exercise was important because technical decisions are often hidden from the public view, even though they strongly influence the quality of architecture. Structure, material, system of ventilation, sunlight, thermal behavior, and constructive strategies are not merely technical aspects. They are also part of the architectural idea. In this sense, technical analysis helped students to understand how buildings work and also how to communicate that working to others. The objective was not to produce a conventional construction document, but to reveal the logic that connects architectural form, environment performance, and material decisions. The fifth analytical approach focused on the language of the architect. Students were asked to study not only the assigned building, but also the wider body of the work of the architecture involved. The goal was to identify factors that define the identity of her architecture: recurrent themes, material strategies, atmospheres, spatial operation, constructive interest, or symbolic reference. This exercise introduced a different dimension of analysis. While the previous exercise focused on the building as a specific object, this one connects the case study to a broader architectural trajectory. It also reinforced the visibility of women architects by presenting their work as coherent, complex, and meaningful. In the examples shown there, the student explored the language of Deborah Mesa, an ensemble studio, through ideas of interpretation with the existing context, materiality, and the transformation of inherent structures. The practical outcome of the project is a set of analytical materials about recent Madrid architecture, produced by a student and made available to COAM Architecture Foundation. This material can be used in the Architecture of Madrid guide, in digital formats such as the Guia Madrid app and in another public activities. The exhibition on the COAM headquarters was a particularly significant result because it placed the students' work in direct contact with the city. The windows of the building on Hortaleza Street allow hundreds of passers-by to encounter the projects, even without entering an academic or professional space. This is important. The project did not wait for citizens to come to university. Instead, it moved architectural knowledge into everyday urban setting. The exhibition made visible both the architecture analysis and the learning process behind the analysis. From an academic perspective, the project can be considered by successful. The level of learning achieved by the student was high, as shown by the assessment results of the groups involved and by the perception gathered through student surveys. One reason for this improvement in the student work repeatedly of the same building, instead of approaching each exercise as separate text, they develop a cumulative understanding. They learn to see the same world through different lenses: urban, parietal, volumetric, spatial, technical, and symbolic. Another important factor was the combination of individual and group work, which support both personal and analytical development and collaborative production. Finally, the public portions of the project increase motivation. Students know that their work can be seen and used by people outside the classroom. This sense of responsibility gave the academic exercise greater meaning. The social impact of the project is more difficult to measure immediately. In the paper, we recognize that the long-term public effect will become clearer after the exhibition and after the material is incorporated into guides, apps, and other dissemination activities. However, we can already identify an initial impact: visibility. The project gives public presence to recent architecture that may otherwise remain less known, and it also contributes to the recognition of the women architects in Madrid. In the future, this impact could be evaluated through visitor numbers, user engagement with digital guides, public feedback, or the participation of citizens in architectural activities. Beyond this specific case, the project suggests a model that could be replicated in the other cities. Architectural school can work with institutions to transform student analysis into public cultural resource. To conclude, teaching Madrid to its citizens shows that architectural analysis can serve two objectives at the same time. It can be a rigorous educational method for students, and it can also be a public service for society. By studying recent works designed with the participation of women architects, the project contributes to a more inclusive and more complete understanding of Madrid's architectural culture. By working through different analytical lenses, students develop a deeper knowledge on their building and improve their capacity to communicate architecture. And by collaborating with the COAM Architecture Foundation, the results of the classroom were connected to real channels of public dissemination. The main message is that the city is not only something we build, it is also something we need to explain, share, and teach. Thank you very much for your attention.